Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. My name is Jeff Reichard. I work on Veeam's product strategy team, and welcome to today's Veeam Industry Insights live stream. I have a great talk lined up for you today because we have the good fortune to be joined by David Boland. David is Vice President of Cloud Strategy at Wasabi. Now, David, I know Wasabi is a cloud company, so let us know, what does a Vice President of Cloud Strategy at Wasabi do?
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. My name, as Jeff said, is David Boland. I'm the Vice President of Cloud Strategy at Wasabi Technologies. Vice President of Cloud Strategy is a pretty fancy title for actually just trying to make the cloud easier for people to use. We have we are a cloud storage company. We focus on cloud storage as a service. So we're an infrastructure as a service solution. And my goal is to make it easier for people to adopt. There's a whole range of folks who are used to doing storage on-prem who maybe have not moved to the cloud yet. And my goal ultimately is to make it less intimidating to move to the cloud. So we don't want people to have to go to cloud school for 3 months to get a certification to figure out exactly what they're doing. If I can take the features and functionality that they're used to using on-prem or in their own data center, move it to our service so they don't have to worry about it as much, my goal will be met.
Perfect, perfect. Well, let's go ahead and jump right in. I know in my conversations with enterprises, actually with organizations, public, private sector, across the board, we at Veeam have a lot of conversations about ransomware these days. And considering the threat that ransomware is, I'm sure, David, that you and your team also get involved in a lot of cybersecurity talks. It's pretty common when we're discussing cybersecurity to talk in terms of people, process, and technology. And I'd like to stick with that when we talk about sort of the Wasabi and Veeam joint offering today, but I'd like to take it a little bit out of order. For people viewing today who are not familiar with Wasabi Technologies, tell us a little bit about Wasabi's technology.
I will. So Wasabi was founded in 2015. We spent 2 years working on a specific hardware and software architecture that's unique to Wasabi, and then we launched our storage as a service solution in 2017. From 2017 to today in 2023, we've offered the service as a solution for people who want to move their data to the cloud. A lot of that data is coming in the form of backup data or archive data for protection. There's the 3-2-1 or the rule of thumb, or what Veeam has coined a 3-2-1-0, I believe it is.
Right. Yep.
For backup, which means that you ought to have a copy of your data offsite in a place that is secure. One, because it makes a lot of sense to have it in a different geographical location, just in case there's some kind of natural disaster or something that happens at your data center. Two, you want to protect it from bad guys. Having cloud storage in a different region, doing your backups to a different region, makes it a lot safer, especially if you have a partner like Wasabi who understands the importance of security and security features. There's a lot of things that we do. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, I was going to say, I think we have a slide about this that will help you speak to some of the capabilities that we're talking about. So please go ahead.
Yeah, so there are some things that, you talked about people, process, and technology. From a people perspective, you want to make sure that the folks on your team have the right access to the backup console. You don't want to give everybody your root account credentials, but there's some things that we do, and I know that Veeam does, to protect it from a people perspective and a process perspective. From technology side of things, there's support for multi-factor authentication, multi-user authentication for account deletion, which we can talk about more in a moment. Object lock, which is critically important. When Veeam announced object lock with version 12, I believe it was, or was it 1.11, version 11? Well, you guys were one of the first folks to come to market with an object lock solution, which was fantastic. And so object lock, critically important, multi-factor authentication, and multi-user authentication. But the support for compliance, industry compliance and government compliance is critically important as well. So from Wasabi's perspective, we need to support FERPA, for federal education customers, CJIS for criminal justice, HIPAA for healthcare and life sciences, GDPR in Europe, and all the other compliances. And that's critically important for our customers and your customers, because if they are storing their data in another region with a cloud infrastructure provider like Wasabi, they want to make sure that the compliance and regulations are all met.
Right, exactly. And actually, I know that the security of the technology stack is a big deal, but you all do very well in the performance area for cloud object storage as well, don't you? That's a big part of the secret sauce that's part of the tech solution.
It is. When we designed our architecture in 2015, we said we just want to have one tier of storage, one hot cloud storage tier, so that when customers want to get their data back, they don't have to wait for it to come out of an archive tier. It could take hours, possibly a day to get that data back. We want to make sure it was hot. If our customers or Veeam customers want that recovery time now, we got to get it to them. So performance is critically important to us. And we've designed our hardware and software architecture to do fast uploads and fast downloads all in one tier. There's no confusing hot, cold, medium, ice cold tier. Everything is on a hot tier. It's all priced at a archive level, but it's hot cloud storage. And I think that's critically important, especially on the backup side, because when you need your backup data back, you want to get it right away. And that's one of the things I really like about the Veeam architecture. You guys have a really high performance architecture using those 1 megabyte size blocks, moves them into storage really fast, and you can get them back really fast. It's one of the fastest high-performant backup solutions that I've seen, and that's one of the reasons why customers go to Wasabi and Veeam simultaneously, because they know the performance is there from both of us.
Exactly. And you mentioned ransomware earlier. Obviously, protecting backups against ransomware adversaries who will invariably try to delete backups as part of the attack is really critical, which is why the data durability and the object lock in Wasabi is important. But another sort of technical difference between recovering after a ransomware attack is just how much you have to recover. It's not like the old days where it's a server or maybe a given application or a database or a rack. You're in a position where you might need to recover the entire data center or a significant percentage of it. So performance really does matter.
Yeah, it does matter, and getting that data back without having to pay extra costs to get your data back is super important. We can talk about that more in a moment, but
yeah, exactly. Let's dig into that, because we've got data well protected, we've got data highly performant to get back out of Wasabi, but there's a phrase that I've heard from your team more than once, and you just alluded to it, cloud economics. Could you talk about what Wasabi means when they talk about cloud economics?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what happens is when people are making a decision to move to the cloud, there's a cost associated with it. They're looking for a lower cost solution. That's also often important. And some of those costs come in savings, CapEx savings, so they no longer have to support servers and cabinets, switches, power distribution units, firewalls, load balancers, and the like. So there's a CapEx cost savings by moving to the cloud. There's also software cost savings. If you're moving a storage array or compute to the cloud, you don't have to worry about power, space, cooling, staff to support it, right? And then, so those are the hardware and software costs. And then also, there's often an overlooked cost. And the overlooked costs are the acquisition time to get more hardware, the installation and maintenance of the hardware, every 3 or 4 years, sometimes 5 years, there is a technology refresh, because there's a life cycle of technology. You have a depreciation cycle. You buy $100,000 worth of on-prem storage today, you depreciate over 3 years, and on the third year you have to buy another $100,000. And so by moving your storage to the cloud, you can do away with those hard costs and soft costs. That's where the cost savings come in. And then once you're made that decision mentally to move to the cloud, you got to find the right cloud storage solution for you. And if it's comparing AWS, Azure, and Google and Wasabi together, you have to look at what those costs are. There's the cost per terabyte you'll pay on a monthly basis. The average, Veeam user may be putting 25, 100 terabytes worth of storage in the cloud. And there's always incremental uploads. And so you look at the cost of storage, but then you also look at what the costs are maybe behind the scenes. Wasabi doesn't charge for API or operations charges. Every time you put something into some cloud providers, a block, a 1 megabyte size block or a series of blocks, each one of those puts has an associated API or operations charge with it. Wasabi doesn't charge for API or operations charges, by the way. But what happens if you look at if you're putting a terabyte of data into the cloud, 1 megabyte size blocks, that's about 1 million puts, 1 million blocks going up there. And you multiply that by some micro penny, 0.5 cents per 1,000 of them, and you get nickel and dimed. So in 2015, when we announced the architecture we were building, we said, let's not have these micro charges. Let's not, nickel and dime folks. We just won't charge for APIs. And one of the things we won't charge for is egress. Also, if you want to get your data back, you shouldn't have to pay to get it back. So when you do your backup to Wasabi, you're only really looking at the cost per terabyte per month. No, not related to egress charges, nothing related to APIs or operations charges. So that makes life a lot easier and simpler if you are an IT manager trying to figure out what your budget's going to be for 2024. If you know you've got 100 terabytes or 150 terabytes worth of Veeam backups to put into the cloud, you know what your cost is going to be for that full year, regardless of whether or not you have to do a restore or you just want to practice doing restores.
Right, exactly. And one of the interesting things that I've found, and this is super consistent, both from Gartner, from Cloudera, from a lot of different analyst firms, is that a pain point even now for a lot of organizations, and this is true across geographies, across verticals, across size of organization, is actually managing their cloud costs. There's a lot of uncertainty around this for all kinds of organizations, and I'm sure that's what you hear as well.
Yeah, I often hear, one of the reasons why people would move to Wasabi from another cloud is the fact that it's predictable what their costs are going to be if they come to Wasabi. But the hidden picture is up to 45% of your cloud costs could be other than storage. Your cloud storage costs could be other than storage. It could be egressing your data. It could be the APIs. So when people go to budget what they're going to end up spending for the cloud, they don't know what the overall cost is going to be because you can't predict what you're going to need to egress. Someone's going to, a file is going to get lost, a file server is going to go down on-prem, someone's going to need some amount of data back. You're going to be putting up new data or inventorying, or even if you want to change the retention on object lock features up there, there's going to be some operations activities to change those or to move that object lock extension forward, and you can't predict those. So there is one of the largest complaints of people who do use the cloud is it's not predictable.
Yep, makes complete sense. Okay, so let's move on. We've talked about the technology, including both the price points that Wasabi offers and sort of the value prop of that for housing backups up in Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. Let's go to processes. If you've got reliable storage that's very performant and that doesn't actually penalize you for using it, what have you seen that as having the effect that has on the processes that joint Veeam and Wasabi customers put in place?
Yeah, so I often hear from our partners, either our MSP friends or other folks, that it gives them a sense of well-being to be able to run practice restores. If you're going to back your data up to the cloud for an emergency, you want to make sure that you can access it when you need it. And by using Wasabi and not having to pay for egress charges, you can do practice restores. And I know that you're probably a busy guy. I'm a busy guy. I got stuff all over my desk. Scheduling time for those things, is then becomes the hardest part. And so how often do you want to do that? Do you want to do it on a quarterly basis or maybe once a year, twice a year? everybody should do a practice restore, just a dry run to see how well it works, and to, for muscle memory, to figure out exactly, what the process is. And I think that being able to do that, knowing that you can get your data back, you're not going to have to pay extra money, but then you can get things up and running, your recovery point objectives and your recovery time objectives can be met. It gives you a peace of mind, especially, again, if you're a service provider and you're offering a service level agreement to your customers. So one of the most important things is being able to say, hey, yeah, I can get your data back when it's needed. And by practicing it, which I hope more and more people will do, you'll be confident in your ability to get your data back for your customer.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, in terms of data governance, the idea that you're working with a partner that's not essentially penalizing you for using your own data, that you're working with Wasabi that's not holding your data hostage, it's got to be very, very appealing. You mentioned Wasabi's regulatory compliance earlier on when we were talking about the various levels of safeguarding that Wasabi does and the certifications that you've got. What interests me about that is that the kind of compliance controls and compliance regimes that we used to associate with highly regulated industries like financial services or healthcare or pharma are being pushed now from sort of a different source for a lot of organizations that I talk to. And that's the cyber insurance companies that organizations are working with. It's very frequent that when I talk with an organization, they're trying to mitigate their cyber risk, their organizational risk and exposure to things like ransomware by buying insurance policies. But recently, cyber insurers have gotten pretty prescriptive about the kind of solutions they want in place if they're going to cover an organization. How does that play into the conversations you're having with customers?
So you are right, and it's becoming more and more difficult to get cyber insurance. You have to show the insurance company, the insurance organization, that you are taking the proper steps. One of those things is immutability, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
Right, and I don't think that we talk enough as an industry about the importance of immutability and what it can do for you. I mean, obviously, everyone's network's going to get attacked. I mean, you can't prevent like some kind of phishing attack, right? And so if somebody does gain access to your network, which you have to make assumptions that they're going to, right? Then they're going to be on the network and they're going to be fishing around inside the network looking for your Active Directory. They're looking for critical components. What they want to do is they want to get access to your backup console, right? Because if they can get access to your primary data, that's fine. They can't do a lot with it unless they can get to the backup data. And the backup data is one of the first places they go, either to encrypt or delete. And if they get access to the backup console, well, someone's going to be in trouble. Veeam does a great job of protecting that backup console. Multi-factor authentication is critically important for everybody. And the folks listening now, if you have, a backup solution and a cloud storage solution, you make sure that you have multi-factor authentication enabled. And then, that's it. You need that if they get your root account information. You don't want, you got to protect the root account information. You can't share that internally. Talked about people, processes, and technology. People don't need to have access to root account information. They can have sub-account information. That's all they need. So, but once if somebody is able to get your root account information and get by multi-factor authentication and then attack your backup console and either delete or encrypt your backups, well, that's an issue, right? If it's immutable, God bless them, they can't do anything with it because you can't delete and alter or encrypt an immutable backup. It's not possible. So then you can prove to the insurance agency, well, I am using immutable backup solution. It can't be deleted. My data can't be held ransom. And so that makes life a lot easier for the cyber insurance people. There is also an end around that bad guys can do on the storage side. So let's say you're a Veeam user, you're using immutability and you're backing it up to the cloud. Right? And somebody gets access to the cloud storage and it's immutable. That data can't be altered or deleted, can't be encrypted, But there's a trick that cyber criminals can use where they can go in and they can delete the account, even if it's immutable. Even if it's immutable, if they get access to your root account information in the cloud, many clouds, not Wasabi, I'll talk about that in a moment, many clouds will allow the root account person to root account credentials to delete the account. The immutable data is gone. And so there is a hole in many cloud solutions that says, if someone gets your root account information, they can delete the immutable buckets. It's all gone. Right. And so there's a hole in the cybersecurity. Now, in the case of Wasabi, we have a feature called multi-user authentication, MUA, for deletion, where Veeam users, Wasabi customers can set up to 3 security contacts in the system that all have to agree that this account can be deleted. That means your IT manager, your CFO, and somebody else all have to give the thumbs up to delete that account. And if a bad guy gets access to the account and tries to delete the account, even if it's immutable, all 3 are being notified. Hey, are you sure you want to delete the account? That gives them a clue that there's something wrong. The red flag goes up and the cybercrime can be stopped. So the ultimate in protection, especially when you're applying for cyber insurance, is to protect your backup console, use multi-factor authentication, you change your passwords quite often if you can, and then on the cloud side, of course, using immutability, but also multi-user authentication for account deletion, so people can't delete that backup account.
That's perfect, and it is so important, because the cyber insurers are looking, of course, for really strong technical solutions like Wasabi, like multi-user authentication, like compliance mode immutability that's absolutely robust. But of course, they're also looking for, and we'll get to the people part of our people process technology now last, they're also looking for evidence that you have incident response plans, but more importantly, that you've tested them. And it sounds like with the model you're describing, when your insurance company, or if you're in a regulated industry, when your industry auditor comes, your regulator comes to you, it sounds like using backup storage in Wasabi is going to make it a lot easier for your people to run through these processes often and get familiar with how they should respond.
Exactly right, and that goes down to supporting the industry compliance, like FINRA for finance, and FERPA and CGIS, Trusted Partner Network, for the folks in the Motion Picture Association and other parts of the world, and then GDPR, SOC 2, ISO 27001. From a physical perspective, are all table stakes in order to be in this game with the cyber criminals.
Yep, absolutely. So we've talked a little bit about the joint solution. Let's look now. I think we have a slide with a few Veeam and Wasabi joint customers. And you and I, David, are both up in the Northeast. So our first one listed here is a Northeastern University, Cornell. Tell us a little bit about what some of the universities and some of the customers listed here, the kind of solution that they've built and the results that they've had with Veeam and Wasabi.
We've had fantastic success as a partnership, Veeam and Wasabi, in the higher education space. And the thing I know about that space is word of mouth travels. And we've had early successes together. Cornell University, one of our older customers, one of your older customers, started using us years and years ago together. There's a wonderful use case brief on the Veeam page and on the Wasabi page that talks more in detail about this, but they're saving $50,000 a year on backups using both Veeam and Wasabi. It's a combination of the savings from Veeam, combination of savings from Wasabi. They have a great solution, but the IT directors, the central IT teams at these universities start talking to each other, and the folks at Russell Sage College, upstate New York, both locations, are good Veeam and Wasabi customers. There's a Clark University Yeah, upstate New York as well. I believe that is also Wasabi customer. There's a lot of universities, but not just that. There's water treatment plant, out in California. That's one of my favorite use cases, and there are construction agencies. I just got off the phone last week with a joint customer of ours who builds refinery equipment for oil refineries, and they're using Veeam for M365 backup. And Wasabi is a repository. They're super happy as well. It spans all different industries, from healthcare and life sciences to MSPs. We got a joint partner, MSP partner, who focuses solely on dentist's office, and he backs up M365 for dentist's office in New England here. I encourage anybody who wants to learn more to go to wasabi.com. /Veeam to our page and see some of the use cases and some of the customers that we share.
It's fantastic. And of course, you mentioned education, which we all know from reading the headlines has been hit very, very heavily, multiple universities and school systems by ransomware actors. You mentioned things like oil and gas and water treatment, both critical infrastructure sectors that CISA takes a good, strong look at their security posture and what they've got in place. But really, as you said, the requirements for this kind of cyber resilience at this point have been completely democratized, right? They go across industries, they go across sizes of organization, public sector, private sector, across the board. So fantastic. Thank you so much, David. Really appreciate you sharing all this. And I will just say, as a big Liverpool Football Club fan, I also deeply appreciate when I see home matches at Anfield, seeing Wasabi sponsorship of Liverpool. That's always great to see as well. So if any of you also like Liverpool Football Club and watch those matches, you'll see Wasabi hot cloud storage on the hoardings at Anfield too. So moving on. We have coming for you this Thursday, September 28th, on Tech Bytes, a show called Common Gaps in Full Stack Security. What we'll be talking about there are what some common gaps are in full stack security. You don't want to find that out the hard way. So if you tune in on Thursday, you can join Rick Vanover from Veeam and Josh Henderson from Entirety for a look into those gaps and how you can overcome them. Looking ahead a week, next Tuesday, October 3rd on Industry Insights, I will be back hosting the show, and I will be joined by Eric Herzog, Chief Marketing Officer at Veeam's storage partner, Infinidat. We covered cloud storage today with David from Wasabi. We'll be talking about on-premises storage with Infinidat next week. And the topic next week, much like this week, will be the value of deep integration between backup and storage. If you have deeply integrated primary storage, and backup software, which we do with Infinidat, you can drive real business value in the speed of backups and the speed of recoveries. And we're going to be breaking that down specifically for VMware and Kubernetes environments with Eric from Infinidat next week. So join in and talk to us then. And thanks everyone for joining us today. Really enjoyed the show. David, thank you again for the talk. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Jeff.
Take care, all.